excited but leaves me infinitely bored.
Do you remember those better days when the reason we were screaming was we had something to say? Do you remember those better days when the lyrics we were hearing meant more than just getting paid? Do you remember those better days before we settled into settling for barely okay? 'Cause I remember those better days. I remember those better days.
I would record the radio, do piles of cheap cassettes. I didn't mind their long lines to see a band that had my respect. But now it's getting harder to find those songs I can't forget. I thought those days would be coming back, but I haven't seen them yet.
Do you remember